start again. Hi, my name is Lindy Jung. I am a science fiction and fantasy author who is soon to be traditionally published, and I am currently neck deep, like up to here, in revisions for my debut adult fantasy, MOTHSBLOOD, coming fall 2026. So this is a vlog. We're going to talk about what I've been up to. Frankly, I'm not sure how interesting this week is going to be. This is my one day off. It's Saturday, so I'm going to probably pack in as much as possible on this day in terms of like the cool, cute, aesthetic writer stuff that I like to do in vlogs. I also mainly wanted to use this as a vehicle to give you guys an update on what's been going on. I'm currently around 60% of the way through my first editorial pass with my editor over at Bloomsbury. We actually just had like a little update call yesterday with editorial, and that was a combination of me answering questions and like just telling them where I was at and what I've been up to with editorial. And I think overall we're pretty happy with my progress and my rate. I think 60% with about 3 weeks left is pretty good. My deadline is March 31st, although that's like a pretty flexible deadline. My book comes out so far out that I don't necessarily need to have a finished draft until October. So that being said, I think I'm going to be pretty happy with the status and shape of this novel by March 31st. I think I'll be pretty happy turning that in. I don't mind doing another round of dev edits or anything like that. So in terms of like timeline and all that stuff, I feel pretty good. In terms of the actual edits themselves, they just haven't been as intensive as I kind of anticipated for like my first, dev edit with an editor at a publishing house. I'm not sure why, but I guess you hear those narratives of like, oh, the editors at publishing houses, big publishing, are going to change your entire novel. That's not been true, at least in my experience. Of course, I'm just one data point. These are all really minor things that I probably was going to change anyway, like world building details. Character relationships are stronger, they're not different. Internal motivation, internal conflict, those processes that are happening with the main character are also more, if not overt, make a little bit more sense, like you can track it a little smoother. So it's all stuff that builds upon and improves the existing manuscript without changing its fabric or changing its nature too much, while also strengthening the goals that I had and that I'd expressed to editorial in terms of, like why I'm telling the story and what the purpose of the book is and its main themes and all that. It's been a really lovely experience so far. I find editorial to be super supportive, and I said this yesterday as well in our little call. I was like, if things are going well, I am not the best communicator during these times because specifically I'm so focused on and invested in the work, I might forget to give updates or something like that. So if you don't hear from me, that's a good sign. It means I'm focused. And they're like, yeah, no, that's fine. We don't need to hear every step. We're happy to just see the finished thing. I was kind of nervous about that flexibility in terms of my wacky creative process because everyone has a wacky creative process. And so it's been really reassuring and really validating in a lot of ways. I feel like, they say that no one's ever going to be as passionate about your own book as you are. But I think it's that no one's ever going to understand your own book in the same way. Like, they're not going to have the same relationship with the book. I think that my team, at least in this moment in time, is way more passionate about the book than I am, because I just kind of see it as work at this point. Like, it's fun work and it's work I'm excited about, but as a product, I'm still getting there. But anyway, yes, revisions are going well. It's again, mostly been minor stuff, and not saying that I'm not like putting in the work, because I have very much changed a few scenes, like not rewritten them again necessarily, but added enough elements that I was restructuring a lot. March 31st is my deadline, and for the next week or so, we're going to edit. So hopefully in this vlog, I'll be reaching the tail end of Act 4, because it's a 5-act book. I've zipped through Acts 1 through 3. Act 3 was a lot tougher, not gonna lie. But I'm currently at the beginning of Act 4. Let's try to move toward the end here. I was doing a 30 to 45 minute writing sprint each day for 10 days, but then I had decided to continue that daily sprint habit for the next 2 months until April and then film again. So it's been like 3 weeks since I started that challenge. I've sprinted every day except for one, when stuff just got really wild for me. I often go over that minimum threshold of 30 to 45 minutes. So that's been really a big game changer. I think it's a big reason why I've made such decent progress on my revisions. I was really stuck for like a week there. Like, I just did not make any movement. I kept going back and looking at the same chapters over and over again, like life of a writer stuff, but sprints have really helped with that. I will do a sprint today. My plan for today is to just like take everything and, well, first I have an oil change appointment at 9. It's around 8. And then I'm probably going to go to my local cafe, so not the one that's like 20 minutes away, but the smaller one that I really like. We'll write, we'll have a little treat. I might grab lunch while I'm out. We'll see how I'm feeling. But first, oil change. Bye. Alright, the oil change went smoothly, and so here I am at my local cafe with a cream cheese and cherry Danish that was so fresh and delicious. I sat up in the second story balcony area this time. It's still quite cold this time of year in the Great Lakes region where I live, so unfortunately no writing outside today. I also got a matcha latte, which I have yet to find a matcha latte in my area that really compares to the ones I would get in California, but you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So I got settled and dove right into work. You can see that I'm checking on my revision tracker. I basically drew one of these clouds for every chapter in MOTHSBLOOD, and then I fill them in once I finish revising that chapter. At this point in revisions, I think I only had like 11 to 13 chapters left to go over. And what I do is I just comb through the chapter from top to bottom, mostly just tweaking scenes, sometimes adding them. A really big addition that I had to make this revision overall were more scenes between the main character, Lark, and her love interest, which was a note I got from like every beta reader and editor. I struggle to write romance in an overt way because I just find that when I do that, it comes off as very disingenuous, kind of like insta-love, and I think personally I just have a very strong preference for a romance that sneaks up on you, and especially sneaks up on the characters without them fully realizing it, which means that a good chunk of the romantic arc ends up being conveyed through subtext, rather than overt action or dialogue or even thoughts. Kind of like I didn't realize it until that specific moment hits. But I did agree with editorial that there was just a need for more hints, more tension, because it was a little bit too subtle. And I didn't want the romance to feel unexpected when it finally hits that big moment. So I added a few scenes and also expanded some existing scenes. The two characters now talk about their personal lives a little bit more and find more common ground a bit sooner. And there are some light touches, kind of like that one hand scene in Pride and Prejudice that was absolutely formative for me. And ultimately, I really liked how it came out and how it was coming along. But yeah, finding that balance between subtlety and also making sure that the romance is still on page, that was pretty tough for me. Anyway, I wrapped up this cafe writing session and headed home to Minnie.
She was passed out a second ago. Hi, honey. Hi, I'm sorry. Hi, baby. Oh.
So I make this confession with the full knowledge that some people are not going to be happy, okay? But this is fried rice with an egg on top. It is, some might call, a version of omelet rice. I put ketchup on this because I grew up eating fried rice with ketchup. Does anyone else do this? I am so far alone in my life. All of my friends did not grow up putting ketchup on fried rice. I don't know why I did. No judgment from people who did not experience this and now can't eat fried rice any other way. But if you have, if you are also a ketchup on fried rice person, please comment. I need the validation. I'm gonna eat this. Still Saturday, March 8th. I'm just wearing a different outfit. So it's about 4 in the afternoon, so I'm actually going to start making dinner probably in an hour or so here. But I have done my 45 minutes of sprints for today. They were kind of focused, kind of not focused. I got through 2 chapters. So if my calculations are correct, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chapters and 1 interlude left to get through, and I feel like this is a part of the book where it's gonna go a little bit faster, and that's really good because I do feel very ahead of schedule. I probably should have mentioned my general timeline, not just my editorial timeline, like my editor's timeline. On March 23rd, or technically March 24th is when the actual retreat starts, but March 23rd is when I go over to New York. I'm going to New York for a writing retreat with a bunch of friends, and it's going to be like probably 4 days, I want to say 4 days of writing stuff. Yeah, so like 4 days of writing retreat stuff. And in that time, that's when I want to do the bulk of my final read through, where I make sure that everything gets addressed and I'm just like, you know, making sure everything connects. So that would be like the last pass I do before I send it back to editorial for review. In order to do that, I need to finish the bulk of this main revision before March 23rd. So it's March 8th currently, which gives me 15 days. I think I can get through 11 chapters in 15 days. Because it's a Saturday and because it's my one day off, I am going to try to do a little bit more. I haven't done my treadmill for today. I've just been doing like brisk walks, 30 to 45 minutes. I've done 5 minutes so far, so I have 40 minutes left on today's treadmill walking. So 40 more minutes. Some of that will probably be the revision. Some of it might be like video editing and stuff. Sometimes I find it kind of difficult to walk or run and write at the same time, or like think really. But video editing is pretty brainless, and I do need to get some videos done. But regardless, I only probably have about another hour or so of work left in me for today. Tomorrow I do have a full day of my part-time job. I think my lesson learned is that I don't think I can go through editorial deadlines and have 40 hours of student teaching, night classes, and a part-time job again. I'm very likely going to quit my part-time job as soon as it's financially possible for me. I've been thinking about this a lot, just in terms of like what I can let go and how I can make more space in my life for writing. Obviously I can't give up school, I can't give up my like day career. I mean, like, there's very little that would get me to quit teaching, but for my part-time tutoring job, I think once it's financially, you know, possible, I'll probably let that go, which hopefully will be pretty soon. Because I just don't, it's not fun to work 6 days a week. I mean, I know plenty of people who have to do it, maybe more than that even. But I think just not having that like extra day is really impacting my ability to refuel and refresh and feel creative, and at this point I do have incentive to prioritize that side of myself, so it's, yeah, definitely, once it's financially feasible, that's something I'm going to do. Oh yeah, I have to send some emails and then I'm going to jump right back into it. Bye. Good morning. It is Sunday, March 9th, and I'm about to head to work. I think I only have like an hour's break today, so I have to pack a lunch. I'll pack a lunch. I'll try to get my 45-minute sprint in during that time, hopefully. I should be heading home like a little bit earlier than usual. Get home, do my treadmill stuff, write, edit the video that I've not made a ton of progress on, unfortunately, and I'm kind of worried that I won't get it done in time, but that's a problem for later. Yesterday went well. I think in total I probably spent like an hour 30, an hour 15 spread out through the day writing. I got through 2 chapters, I want to say. So I only have 9 chapters and 1 interlude left for this pass, and I feel really good about that. So let's see if we can get another chapter in. I'm in Act 4, which is historically has been one of my more problematic acts, as in like it was difficult for me, but it's also one of my favorites because I think at the point that it's getting to now, it's just a really good, it does what it's supposed to do really well. So Moths basically follows this like trajectory of the main character, Lark, and the acts kind of line up with where she's at in terms of her arc and development, and Act 4 is when things like just go sideways. And Save the Cat and those kind of beat sheets, although this book does not really line up with those very cleanly. This would be like the Dark Night of the Soul, but it's just a really long Dark Night of the Soul, and I kind of love it. Everything kind of crashes together, crescendos. She's exhibiting some really self-destructive behavior. Lark is a very self-destructive, not super well-adjusted individual, and I love it. I love characters like that. I love maladapted, complicated, genuinely just like messy characters. That's like always been a really fun act to work on for me. The chapters are a lot shorter in this act. At least I feel that way. I haven't actually done like a word count total or anything, but they're like punctuated by like these major events, and there's a lot of them happening at once because everything's kind of happening to Lark at once. So that's making it kind of a breeze to edit, at least in terms of like getting through chapters and moving on to the next one. So hopefully that goes well today. I probably won't film too much at work because it's work, but I will update you guys hopefully at the end of the day if I remember. The rest of this vlog is maybe gonna be like little update clips until Saturday. I do hopefully want to have some, you know, go out and really focus on writing, go to maybe the cafe that's a little further, do some, you know, productive stuff next Saturday. But beyond that, I don't really have time to do that. I have a little time tomorrow, depending on when things end. You guys know the deal. You know how messed up my schedule is right now. I think I really wish I had these Sundays off. I think it would be so nice if I could take Saturday to kind of decompress a little bit from the work week and the school week, and then come back into it and spend a lot of time on Sunday, because the way it lines up now, Saturday ends up being a lot of like housework. We take out the trash, we clean, I meal prep, and because those things tend to be quite time and energy consuming, I feel like, you know, an hour and a half is good for me, but there were days in the past where I could spend like the entire day writing and I could work on multiple projects, and I haven't, you know, at this stage I haven't touched crypts in a while, which is good because I like being able to fully immerse myself in moths, but it's just a little bit frustrating sometimes that I don't get that beat, that day to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of in like my adult life, and then spend a day writing, because I don't get a 2-day weekend, and I don't really get evenings anymore either because I get home pretty late. But I digress. It's something I have to figure out for myself. I just wanted to share. In 2 weeks, yeah, I do have vacation, spring break, and a writing retreat, so that's gonna be fun. I am going to put so much effort into that vlog, and it's gonna be good. Okay, let's go. Bye. Hi, so it's currently Monday, March 10th. It is a whopping freaking 65 degrees 70 out right now, which is, it's wild. It's wild. Updates in terms of writing. Not too many. I just completed another chapter today, but I haven't finished my sprints for today. I've only done 15 out of the 30 minutes. So I need to go ahead and do that. I just got home from, you know, student teaching and all that. But I wanted to film an update clip today because as of this time, March 10th, 5:10 p.m., Local Heavens by Cam Fajardo has had a cover release. It's here, it's glorious. This is a queer cyberpunk Great Gatsby retelling. The author, Chris, is one of my friends. We met through AuthorTube. She has her own channel. I'm sure you've seen her stuff if you've seen my stuff. But just in case you weren't already in the loop about Local Heavens, literally, hands down, the best cyberpunk story I've seen in any media. Such a brilliant retelling of The Great Gatsby. Like, I can't even be coherent about it because the way that the world and the story are crafted, it's one of those things where like you wouldn't necessarily think of that concept of The Great Gatsby and cyberpunk being combined, but she does it in a way that just makes so much freaking sense and is so clever, intricate, well thought out. I'm so excited for the book to come out October 14th. Please pre-order it. I just pre-ordered my paperback copy today. I will be getting multiple copies. I also really want to get it. I'm going to get as many copies as I can. I'm just so proud of Chris and so happy for this book to come out so that other people can finally read it. I was lucky enough to read an early copy way back when, and it's just like so cool to see the process and to see the finished product coming so soon in just 7 is the number I was looking for, 7 months. Okay, so writing updates. Act 4 is having some logical consistency issues now that I'm a little further into the draft. The strings that I've been pulling earlier on in the draft are beginning to have more of an effect, so I definitely need to reserve as much time as possible for another pass because I want to be able to see the whole picture and make my edits accordingly. But I'm trying to tell myself that it doesn't need to be 100% perfect in this run, but fighting that perfectionism gene is very, very difficult, as I'm sure if you're a perfectionist, you can relate. I guess the thing is that it just feels like a lot, and it is a lot. It's a lot of pressure to be like, hey, this is pretty much going to be one of the last times that you get to sit with your book with, you know, minimal input from still input from other people, still input from editorial, which I do take very seriously, but at the end of the day, it's still just me and the book at this stage. Trying not to think too much about how it will be received by readership, and it's not working. I constantly am reading this through the lens of a potential reader who doesn't exist, a hypercritical reader who notices all the little flaws and points them out. That's definitely challenging to work with. It's a voice that I haven't really dealt with before because I haven't gotten this far into the publication process before. Just the awareness that there's a lot more to think about, there's a lot more writing on this now that it's a monetary investment for a company, and there are people who are now invested in this work to a different degree and in a different way, but they're still, you know, involved in this, and I don't know, it's a lot. Writing with the threat of traditional publication, or any kind of publication I'd imagine, looming in the distance is very different, it's very new, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing yet. I think it's just a new way to approach the work. And I'm still going to be a very craft-focused writer. I still always will be a very craft-focused writer who's very, you know, focused on the quality of my prose and stories and characters and things like that. Like, that's never going to change. But I think it's interesting how my definitions of those things, not in any direction of quality, like not for better or for worse, just in general, my perception and how I approach craft elements is now being influenced by thoughts of like marketability. You know, something as simple as like genre category. That's something actually I want to talk about a little bit while I still have battery life. I won't get into it too deep because I think I'll save this one for one of my little like sit down chats. The direction of my career, as in the books that I want to write, who knows if they'll get published. I'm currently on a 1-book contract, which means that I don't have a guaranteed publication for whatever I write next. The books I want to write moving forward are not necessarily all adhering to this like literary speculative blend that I am pursuing with Moths. Moths is, it's commercial fantasy, but it also has literary elements in terms of the prose and how I approach character, and it is very introspective in a way that I feel like is more in line with literary fiction conventions. So it toes the line there. It does also blend genres like horror, and it's very gothic, and there's a little bit of a mystery element as well. I love blending genres. I don't know if I necessarily want to only write literary-leaning speculative fiction moving forward. My heart is very much with spec fic, mostly fantasy, but you've seen me publish science fiction. I have a cli-fi piece available through Grist if you want to read that. The projects that I've been thinking of lately, which is always a sign to me that that's what I'm going to pursue next, and I'm kind of in the stage where I'm like, okay, I'm deep enough into Crypts to start thinking about what project I would pursue after Crypts and the second novel of Crypts. And those projects have been a rom-com that I've talked about on this channel before very briefly. It's about food, Koreatown, culture, family. Another book set in Los Angeles that's almost like a paranormal / urban fantasy with like a funny heroine. I don't know if this is still like a viable comp, but back in the day as like a kid I read the Dresden Files, so it would kind of be in line with that, like tonally. And a very, very heavily literary leaning novel to the point where it is basically lit fic that has some commercial elements but is mostly speculative lit fic. So those are 3 very different directions to go in, and I'm kind of like scared. I just haven't been able to come up with an idea that fits neatly into this category of like kind of gothic, literary leaning, but not fully literary, speculative fiction / fantasy that I feel like Moths and Crypts both fit in. And like, is that my brand though? So should I only write stuff that adheres to those things? I also think that my writing style has flexibility to it. I've always had a voice that I don't think it's immediately identifiable, because with my young adult fiction, I was writing in very different voice for those 2 projects that failed on submission. Moths is also a different voice from that. Crypts is also a different voice from that. I like to experiment with voice a fair bit. I don't know, there's a lot to consider. I don't know if these are like real fears. I've had this conversation very slightly with my agent in terms of positioning specifically for Moths, but I haven't been like, hey, I kind of want to write some urban fantasy in the future, in the distant future. Laura, if you see this, I appreciate you. I don't know, it's just like odd that I've never really had to put parameters on myself like this before as a creative. I just kind of wrote whatever I wanted and was like, hopefully this will stick. But this is me thinking like 40 steps ahead because I have anxiety, so it's me playing 4-dimensional chess with no one other than my own fears. But that's kind of what's been on my mind, is I just have so many different, disparate ideas floating around, and I just don't know which one would be good to pursue, and now that the angle of the conversation is like which one would be good for your hypothetical career that doesn't exist yet has entered that conversation, it makes it even more challenging. And in a lesser sense, it's also trickling down to my editorial approach for mods. So I looped it all together. That was a complete thought. No, it was not. I'm gonna go eat and then write a little bit and then lesson plan. That's it. That's the update. Bye. It's definitely raining today. Oh yeah. Good morning. As you can see, hold on. I really need to clean and organize and just do like a general spring refresh. Yeah, here's some angles you don't really see. Fully intended to go to a cafe today, but it's gross outside. I have like a million things to do here at home, and I also have a stream at 2 with Chris, which I'm really excited about, and I don't want to be late or like, I don't know, crunched for time on any of that stuff. So going to do my house chores. It's about 9-ish. So yeah, clean up my area a little bit, eat something, make my tea. I just woke up because it's a Saturday. It's Saturday, by the way, Saturday, March 15th. Yesterday was Pi Day. And yeah, just kind of catch up on the things that need to be done. And hopefully after that, I'll have free time to have a good day of writing. Okay, bye. Hi. Okay, so it's about 5 o'clock. Still Saturday. I just wrapped up like a 2-hour stream with Chris, and then we talked probably for like another hour, unfortunately. I just kept her captive. But I got 45 minutes of writing work done, which is my goal for weekends. In terms of like progress on the revision, I might dive back into revising in just a second here, maybe do like a 15-minute sprint or just kind of go for it, because there is this chapter, it's at the start of Act 5, that I am struggling with. It's kind of the chapter where all of the different things that I've tweaked earlier on in the book are coming to a head, and I need to insert the payoff for those things. And also it just was missing a huge piece of itself. Like basically this is the chapter where Lark decides to do something about her situation, and she comes up with a plan and executes the plan, but it only shows the part where she executes the plan. It's not showing the part where she comes up with the plan. And so there's like this huge disconnect between the end of Act 4 and the interlude and what she goes into next. And I am just inserting more words, like I am just fleshing out the plan. But there's always something a little bit like disconcerting about adding a new scene or more words to a revision, because I just feel like these words are kind of choppy. They're not, you know, as refined as the ones that have been there since the beginning. And also there's the matter of like, this wasn't an edit that was like requested by editorial. So I'm kind of, you know, going off on my own and doing this. I do think it services the story just in terms of like clarity and coherence and this building of anticipation before everything comes crashing together in the climax. But like, I still don't know if this will fly, and it feels a little bit weird to have to gut check myself and be like, how will editorial feel about this change that I've made, this edit? Also, this kind of ties into something I wanted to talk about as well, in that lately my writing has been accompanied by a lot of mood swings. Like just in terms of how I view my story, I'm either feeling really good about it, which is usually something along the lines of like, this is the best thing that I'm capable of writing and I'm never going to get to this level again with my future works, or this is far from the best thing I could ever write and it is a disservice to myself and my work, and we're kind of just like oscillating back and forth between the two wildly, and it's a total crapshoot as to which way I'll be feeling on a given day. But both are like fear-based emotions, right? Even the positive side of it is fear-based because I feel like I'm not gonna do better than this. I'm consistently struggling to develop a healthy relationship with my work and even with my writing in general, or like my identity as a writer. But that goes around and makes me feel really grateful for my editor and everyone, you know, my agent, everyone who's given me feedback on my work, because that cuts through the self-talk. Whether it's positive or negative, I feel like it gives me a path to pursue in terms of revisions, and it keeps me from doing this like death spiral, which I very much experienced. Like, if you don't know, the first book I ever wrote was when I was quite little, and then I just kept rewriting that book over and over again because I knew it wasn't as good as it could be, and it wasn't. But I also didn't quite have the experience and the clarity to know how to fix it efficiently. So that was a 13-year process before I queried with it, and ultimately it did die on submission. But yeah, I guess there's nothing to do but just to keep going. I had this conversation on stream today, but like, I am a professional. This is a job. I consider it a job, and I want to do my job well, and I want to be treated like a professional, and I want to behave like a professional, which means getting my job done on time, so turning my revisions in by the deadline, getting the revisions done to the best of my ability. That's pretty much like all my job entails right now, which is kind of nice. I mean, at the end of the day, I love writing. I'm never going to not write, so it's cool to be able to do it on a professional level. But I've talked enough. My voice is going. I've been yapping all day, or all afternoon. I'm going to leave it at that and just kind of keep going. But that is it for today. Bye. We're gonna multitask a little bit. It's Sunday, March 16th. I feel like in every sense of the word right now, I am beyond exhausted. Just creatively fatigued, just emotionally fatigued because of not anything that's been going on with like my life, but just the state of the world. For time, I'm just stretched for time. And I've gotten like 0 breaks. I don't know, I don't want to sound like a broken record and keep complaining about this, but for the past month or so, I've been perfectly balanced in terms of what I can handle. Like, my schedule's pretty much figured out. I get things done more or less in the allotted time, but I'm just kind of half-assing everything rather than whole-assing any given thing. And it's definitely reaching a breaking point. Feeling incredibly overloaded, just so many responsibilities, so many things to get done in a day, not enough free time in a day because I'm running around. And I think I talk about it so much because the main thing that gets impacted is my writing. Beyond my 30-minute sprints each day, which I love, they've been such a game changer for writing consistently, I don't have much time to even think about writing. But I think even in terms of like brain capacity, I just don't have the same emotional and creative capacity to think about writing, daydream about writing the way I used to, which is mainly how I would brainstorm and plan my projects. So I feel like I'm kind of going through the motions with this revision, and also I haven't touched or looked at crypts in so long. For me, this small difficulty is that I work so much for so little, and I'm still going to come out of this year with student loan debt because of the way that basically one of the grants that I was using to subsist my tuition, because tuition in my program is entirely free for Wisconsin residents, but I was an out-of-state student and I had several grants to help with the like extra, so I wouldn't have to pay out of pocket, and I still had to take out some loans. But one of the grants got frozen, like I'm not getting it, and I kind of don't know how I'm gonna pay for summer tuition, which would suck if I had just 1 semester left and I couldn't get my degree after all this work because I couldn't pay for it. So like, yeah, I have to stay on so I can pay that. I want to take out as few loans as possible. I don't know. It's just things have gotten kind of messed up. This is a bummer update. You can tell maybe I'm feeling a little stressed out. I noticed yesterday during my stream my energy was like crazy, and I mean, like, I love talking with Chris, I love doing streams, but I was like, I don't think I'm in the headspace for this right now to like talk about writing with people, and I feel like I'm very rarely in that headspace now. So yeah, maybe I'll skip the stream for April. I'm trying to do like 1 a month on my channel, but it's just not, I don't know, it's just not working out for me. Sorry this is such a bummer vlog, but in brighter news, I am very close to the finish line with MOTHSBLOOD. I'm getting deeper into Act 5, which is the final act. MOTHSBLOOD is in 5 parts, and they're like sectioned off and have part names and stuff like that. And then once I hit the end of that, that's gonna be my first pass done, and I'm just gonna do another pass, hopefully while I'm on that week-long retreat. In that week between now and break, I am going to try to hit the end of Act 5. In general, my goal is to get to the end of Act 5. I've already looked at the epilogue. Epilogue is fine. Epilogue is probably one of my favorite pieces of the book. Like, the last image of this book came to me so early on, and that rarely happens, and I feel like I was able to get to that last image in a way that I was really proud of. So I probably have about 4 or 5 chapters left to go through. They shouldn't be too intensive. I just finished the one that was more intensive, that had a little bit more of a rewrite. I think the rest of them should be just tying up loose threads. Hopefully I can finish that in the next couple days. See, now that I've said it, it won't happen. But hopefully I can get a good amount of that done in the next couple days, and then like starting next weekend it'll be my read through, and then during the actual writing retreat I will just go full ham and like really dive into it. And that's going to be a separate vlog. But this vlog will be wrapping everything up and hopefully hitting the end of Act 5 with this first pass. And I'm really glad that it worked out that way, where I have that little bit of extra time to go back and look at everything again, because I was not sure that I would get that. But we did. And we will. Manifesting it. So this vlog will go until I finish this first pass. Bye. Hi, it's currently Wednesday, March 19th. It's actually my dad's birthday, so shout out to Dad, happy belated birthday. I raced home because, well, 1, I had a little bit of a headache, and 2, because earlier today I did about an hour's worth of sprints during my breaks at, my school, and I now have like 1.5 chapters left for this revision pass. So I'm about to finish ahead of schedule. Obviously I want to use the next week and a half for, like the last pass before I send this manuscript over to my editor for approval, or, more edits or whatever happens. It's fine by me. But I think I'm going to be able to finish in one session. So we are going to have that session. This is the chapter tracker I've been using. It's a little bright. But as you can see, only 2 chapters are left. Chapter 30 is pretty long, but I'm about halfway through it already, and then chapter 31 is very short, and historically has been very easy. Like, I wrote it once, it did everything it had to do. I've only made very minimal changes since. So yeah, let's do it. Let's get right into it. I'm not going to waste time, but I'm going to dive right in. Let's go.
Hi, VoiceOver Lynn here. So in these clips, I'm of course working on the last chapter and a half of MOTHSBLOOD, but I actually want to talk a little bit about what multiple revision passes feels like, and also what its purpose is. So MOTHSBLOOD at this point in time has only been through 3 full top-to-bottom revisions, including this one, but the first half was heavily revised again and again over the course of a few years. It's just that I didn't actually finish the book for a long time, so the completed work didn't see a ton of revision before I queried and went on sub. But I have spent a lot of time with this book, and I think it's very easy to get sick and tired of a book when you've been spending too much uninterrupted time with it, which definitely contributes to how I was feeling about this project earlier in this vlog. Of course, we all know logically that having to review and revise and tweak the same story over and over again is part of the process, but that can be really easy to forget in the heat of the moment. That being said, there is also such a joy in reaching the end and knowing that you've made the book better, and in my case, brought it one step closer to the form that will go out into the greater world. I don't know, not a ton of point to this voiceover, I guess. Just wanted to kind of talk about how revision was feeling for me at this point of time, and also talk about how it feels now that I'm about a week out of it and talking to you guys from the future. Okay? Bye.
Hi, just finished revision 2 and updated everything in my sprints and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I just hit the end of the last chapter. Okay, so that was like my macro pass, so I took care of the big things. Now it's going back, doing another quicker read through in the next week and a half before March 31st. Again, most of that time will be spent at a super fun writing retreat in New York, so I'll have plenty of opportunities to really focus on this book, even more so than I have lately. Sprints have really been working for me. I'm gonna do a full reflection probably tomorrow because I'm a little bit... I need a break. My brain has been working overtime these past couple days. But That is a really good feeling. I'm not gonna lie. It's always so nice to hit the end of a manuscript or the end of a pass. And I think I did a pretty... Okay, so like 10,000 words got added throughout this revision, which feels like a lot, but it also feels like I barely did anything. So I think going back and looking through and actually seeing what changes have happened will be helpful. I definitely addressed all of my editor's inline comments, and now I'm just going to go back and make sure that I've addressed kind of like the edit letter stuff, which is more like overarching, making sure those threads tie together really neatly. I already know of like one loose end where there's like a revelation from a character early on that I ended up moving, but then I couldn't find a good space for it, so I have to find a space for that reveal because it's very important. That's it. That's all for today. I'll finish this up with a wrap up and outro tomorrow. Bye.
And we're back! So hi, it is officially the next day. It is Thursday, March 20th, and I wanted to wrap up this vlog with some updates, you know, some reflection and looking ahead like I usually do. So yesterday, of course, y'all saw me finish up the first revision pass of this revision round, I guess. I don't know, what's the difference between a round and a pass? But I finished reading and revising my book from start to finish, but of course the work isn't done yet. So it is currently Thursday, March 20th, and my official deadline for this edit is Monday, March 31st. So I actually have 11 extra days, and I plan to use every single one of those days to make this book as good as it can possibly be. Honestly, I'm not sure if I feel 100% satisfied with this last revision. I do think some of that boils down to the nature of the work, like you're never fully satisfied. There's always another scene you can tweak, or a line you can add to, or a character arc you can refine. But as I'm moving into this next stage of revisions, I do feel like everything's a bit more manageable. I always like to think of revision and writing in general as kind of similar to evolution. There's no end stage of evolution. There's no ultimate final form. It's really just adapting and improving things as you move along. So there's no perfect final form of this book, but there are various ways to improve upon it to make it more effective, especially in terms of character arcs and themes and that kind of thing, and that's kind of my goal, just in general, in terms of revision. And as the work of revision progresses, I find that it becomes more detail-oriented and granular, and that's the part that I like a little bit more. I love a line-level edit. Sometimes dev edits can be really overwhelming, there's just so much work to do, but a line-level edit I can handle. Now that I've completed my first pass, I took a little bit of a break yesterday evening, but I actually dove right back into things again this morning, so I haven't spent that much time away from this manuscript. So for revision 3, there are 3 main things that I'm going to focus on, and that is, number 1, address the last of my personal inline comments. If you've been following along, you'll know that I did a read-through on my own and I left close to 400 comments on the document. Some were just line-level tweaks and some were really big overarching changes. I've cleared almost all of those comments. I think I only have 5 or 6 left at this point, but the ones that are left are there because they were notes that involved going back and maybe like tweaking the setup, so moving around the manuscript more than I wanted to do in this past revision. I wanted to move in a more linear fashion. So now I can be a little bit more flexible and not interrupt my own flow so much as I go back and tweak setups and payoffs and that sort of thing. Number 2 is to triple check my edit letter. So I do have an edit letter from editorial, and I want to make sure that I'm addressing every point to the best of my ability. There might be things that I miss or misconstrue, but we've had some really good conversations about these edits. My editor knows what I'm doing to address these points, and I just want to make sure that I'm meeting those expectations. And finally, number 3, I'm going to Control F and I'm going to look for my crutch words, which are words that I lean on when I don't know what to say, when nothing clever or literary or interesting comes to mind. I already did a little bit of this today, and the word I, both the verb and the noun, come up like 200 times in this 400-page novel, so obviously I need to cut that down because once every 2 pages is too much for the word eyes. I just don't want to see that. I think the word voice appears around 150 times. I love the word voice. Glance comes up quite a bit, and then I think skin comes up a lot. So these very tactile words I tend to lean on, especially as means to convey emotion. That method of conveying emotion in novel and interesting ways sometimes eludes me, especially if I'm going a little bit more quickly, as you tend to do in earlier drafts, so just looking out for those crutch words. So that is the last thing I'm going to do for this revision. And as I'm moving through this 3rd revision, I am actually starting from the middle. So today my work started at the top of Act 3, and I'm going to follow Act 3 all the way down to the end. Of course, I'll be bouncing around a little bit as the revisions call for it, mostly going from Act 3 to the end, and then I'll start
back at the top again from Act 1 to the end of Act 2. This is actually a tip that I picked up from Chris, Cam Fajardo. She's been doing this for her revisions, and again, Local Heavens is out October 14th, so please pre-order. I think this really does help counter that sort of like fatigue. I don't want to say laziness, but for me it does feel like laziness. Just as I get to the end of a manuscript, whether I'm drafting or revising, I feel a little bit tired, right? And I feel lazy, so my language is a little bit more loose, it's a little less interesting, my prose is less neat. You know, I'm using those crutch words more and more toward the end. So approaching the back half of the book with fresher eyes, although fresh is relative here because I just went straight from revision to revision, I think is going to be super helpful. And then, of course, after the next 11 days, it will be time to turn this book in, and that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching this video. It has been a wild ride. I'm kind of looking forward to editing this one, honestly, because I forget what happened at the start. Like, completely forget what I was doing. If you've made it to the end, drop a cherry blossom emoji to celebrate impending spring. I'm so excited. I can't wait to go outside and look at flowers and botanize and just enjoy the warmth and the sunshine. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this and you haven't already subscribed, please do so. I upload videos more or less bi-weekly. They are about writing, they're about traditional publishing, sometimes they're about books. We'd love to have you here. Thank you guys again and have a great day.